The explosion ripped through the eastern gallery of Orbital Station Meridian with a force that sent decorative crystals flying like shrapnel. Marcus Chen hit the polished floor hard, his shoulder screaming in protest as he rolled behind a marble pillar. Around him, the diplomatic festival had transformed into chaos in seconds. Screams filled the air. Dignitaries from a dozen worlds scrambled for exits that were already sealed. Marcus's trained eyes swept the scene, cataloging threats while his heart hammered against his ribs. This was supposed to be a simple security job. Stand around, look professional, collect a paycheck. Nobody had mentioned assassination attempts in the briefing. Through the smoke and panic, Marcus spotted her. Princess Cyrenala of the Valtherian Empire stood frozen near the central fountain, her silver skin gleaming under emergency lights. Her ceremonial guards lay motionless around her, taken down by whatever had preceded the explosion. 3 figures in dark combat suits moved toward her with deadly purpose, their weapons raised. Marcus didn't think. Thinking got people killed. He launched himself from behind the pillar, grabbing a serving tray from a toppled table as he ran. The nearest assassin turned toward him, weapon tracking his movement. Marcus threw the tray like a discus. It wasn't elegant, but it didn't need to be. The metal disc caught the assassin across the faceplate with a satisfying crack, buying Marcus 2 precious seconds. He crashed into the figure with all his weight, driving them both into the fountain. Water exploded around them. The assassin was stronger than Marcus, enhanced muscles obvious even through the suit. But Marcus had grown up scrapping in the military and on station docks across human space. He fought dirty, jabbing fingers toward the suit's joint seals, using his elbow against what he hoped was a vulnerable spot. The assassin threw him off with frightening ease. Marcus landed badly, ribs protesting. Pain flared hot and immediate, but he forced himself to move. The other 2 assassins had reached the princess. Cyrenala had found her courage. She held some kind of ceremonial blade, her 4-fingered hand steady as she faced her attackers. But Marcus could see she had no real training. The weapon was for show, not combat. Marcus grabbed a fallen ceremonial pole, the kind that held banners during festivals. It was 7 feet of decorated metal and absolutely not a weapon, but it would have to do. He charged again, yelling at the top of his lungs. The sound was pure human aggression, wordless and primal. One assassin turned toward him. Marcus swung the pole like a baseball bat, putting his whole body into it. The assassin blocked with an armored forearm, but Marcus had already committed to the feint. He released one hand from the pole and grabbed a fistful of the alien flowers decorating a nearby stand. He hurled them directly into the assassin's face. The flowers were Valtherian moonblooms, Marcus remembered from the festival program. They release spores when disturbed. The assassin's faceplate was cracked from the earlier impact. Spores found the gaps. The figures stumbled backward, clawing at their helmet. The 3rd assassin shot Marcus. The energy bolt caught him in the left side, just below his ribs. White-hot agony exploded through his body. Marcus went down, the pole clattering from his hands. His vision grayed at the edges. Through the haze of pain, he saw the assassin turn back toward the princess. Marcus's hand closed around something on the floor. A piece of broken crystal from the explosion, sharp as any knife. He forced himself up on one elbow and threw it with the last of his strength. The crystal tumbled end over end and buried itself in the back of the assassin's knee, finding a gap in the armor. The figure collapsed with a sound that was definitely a curse in whatever language they spoke. Marcus tried to stand. His legs wouldn't cooperate. Blood soaked his security uniform, warm and spreading. The station's artificial gravity felt like it had tripled. He looked up to see Princess Cyrenala staring at him, her large eyes wide with something between shock and disbelief. The remaining mobile assassin, still struggling with the spores, raised their weapon toward the princess. Marcus opened his mouth to shout a warning, but his voice came out as a weak rasp. Then the cavalry arrived. Royal guards poured through breached doorways, their advanced armor gleaming, weapons ready. The assassins realized their opportunity had passed. One triggered some kind of device, and all three vanished in bursts of light. Teleportation, Marcus's fading mind supplied, uselessly. Of course they had an escape plan. The guards surrounded Princess Cyrenala immediately, forming a protective barrier with their bodies. Medical personnel rushed into the gallery. Marcus lay on the blood-slicked floor, watching the ceiling spin slowly above him. He'd done his job. The princess was safe. He could let go now. But consciousness refused to fade completely. Hands lifted him onto a stretcher. Voices spoke in rapid Valtharian, the words too fast for his basic understanding of the language. He caught fragments. The human, impossible odds, saved her life. Then Princess Cyrenala's face appeared above him. Up close, Marcus could see the intricate silver patterns in her skin, the way her features were both alien and somehow familiar in their expression of concern. She spoke in accented but clear standard English. "Why did you do this, human? You had no obligation to me." Marcus managed a weak smile, tasting copper in his mouth. "Just doing my job, Your Highness. Protecting people. That's what security contractors do. You were hired to monitor the crowd, not engage armed assassins." Her voice carried something Marcus couldn't quite identify. Confusion, maybe. Or respect. "Yeah, well." Marcus coughed, and it hurt everywhere. "Guess I'm bad at following job descriptions." The princess said something else, but Marcus couldn't hear it anymore. The darkness he'd been holding back finally crashed over him like a wave, pulling him down into its depths. His last thought before unconsciousness claimed him was that he'd probably just lost his bonus for causing a scene. He had no idea how wrong he was about what came next. When Marcus woke, he wasn't in a station medical bay. The ceiling above him was decorated with murals depicting alien constellations, painted in luminous colors that seemed to glow with their own light. The bed beneath him was too soft, the air too clean and perfumed with scents he didn't recognize. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through his side, though it was duller than he expected. Someone had done serious medical work on him. Looking down, he saw his torso wrapped in some kind of advanced healing bandage that pulsed with gentle blue light. The door opened, not with a mechanical hiss like station doors, but with a whisper of sound like wind through trees. A Valtharian in formal robes entered, followed by two guards whose armor looked expensive enough to buy a small ship. "Marcus Chen," the robed figure said in perfect English. "You are awake. Excellent. The Queen wishes to see you immediately." "As in, the actual Queen of the Valtharian Empire?" "There is only one Queen," the figure replied with what might have been amusement. "And yes, Queen Valthara herself has summoned you. It is a great honor." Marcus looked at his hospital gown. "Can I at least get dressed first?" "That has been arranged." 20 minutes later, wearing clothes that fit perfectly despite never being measured, Marcus walked through corridors that screamed wealth and power. Everything was larger than human scale, making him feel like a child. The guards flanked him, their expressions unreadable. He was on Valtharis Prime itself, he realized. The capital world. Somehow they'd brought him here from the orbital station. The Queen didn't just want to thank him. The Queen had transported an injured human across space to her own planet for an audience. Marcus's stomach tied itself in knots. In his experience, powerful people only did things like that when they wanted something big. The throne room doors opened, and Marcus's suspicions were confirmed. This was going to change everything. The grand throne hall of Valtharis Prime was designed to intimidate. Marcus understood that within 3 steps through its massive doors, The ceiling soared hundreds of feet overhead, supported by pillars carved from single pieces of crystal that caught and refracted light into dancing rainbows. The floor was polished stone that showed his reflection like dark water. Every surface whispered the same message: "You are small, and this place is eternal." At the far end of the hall, raised on a dais of 7 levels, sat Queen Velthara. Marcus had seen images of the Valtharian queen before, but they hadn't prepared him for her presence in person. She was tall, even by her species standards, her silver skin marked with deep blue patterns that indicated extreme age and wisdom in Valtharian culture. She wore robes that seemed to shift colors as she moved, and a crown of twisted metal that looked organic, like it had grown from her head rather than been placed there. Her eyes fixed on Marcus as he approached, and he felt the weight of centuries in that gaze. This being had ruled an empire spanning dozens of star systems since before Marcus's grandparents were born. She had negotiated with species humanity had only recently discovered existed, and right now she was studying him like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. Marcus stopped at the base of the dais, unsure of proper protocol. He settled for a respectful nod. Going to his knees felt wrong for a human, even before royalty. "Marcus Chen," the queen's voice resonated through the hall without seeming loud. "The human who saved my daughter." "Your Majesty," Marcus replied, keeping his voice steady. "I did what anyone would do in that situation." "No." The queen's contradiction was absolute. "You did what no one else did. 63 beings were in that gallery when the assassins struck. 12 were trained security personnel of various species. Yet only you, a human contractor with basic clearance, acted to protect Princess Sirnala. Why?" Marcus considered the question. "I didn't really think about it, Your Majesty. I saw someone in danger and reacted. That's the job." "Your job was to observe and report," the Queen said. "Not to engage multiple armed assassins with improvised weapons and no backup." She leaned forward slightly. "You nearly died." "Nearly counts," Marcus said, then immediately worried he'd been too flippant. But something that might have been amusement flickered across the Queen's face. "Indeed, you survived, Marcus Chen, and in doing so, you have created a situation that must be addressed. The real reason for this audience." By Valtharian law and custom, Queen Velthara continued, "You have proven yourself worthy through trial of blood. You defended a member of the royal family against overwhelming odds and succeeded. This cannot be ignored or dismissed with simple compensation." Marcus felt his stomach sink. "Your Majesty, I appreciate the recognition, but I'm really not looking for a medal or anything. I have contracts to fulfill back in human space, and you misunderstand." The Queen's voice cut through his words like a blade. "This is not about what you seek. It is about what honor demands. You saved my daughter's life. Under our oldest laws, you are now bound to her protection until she releases you or ascends to the throne." The words took a moment to register. When they did, Marcus felt like he'd been shot again. "Wait, what? I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but I can't just become someone's bodyguard. I have a life, responsibilities. I'm not even trained for royal protection work." "And yet you succeeded where trained guards failed." The Queen's eyes held no sympathy. "The laws of my people are ancient, Marcus Chen. They existed before your species achieved spaceflight. I cannot simply ignore them because they are inconvenient." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, mind racing. "Surely there's an exception, a way out. I'm not even Valtharian. These laws weren't meant for humans." "The laws speak of warriors, not species," the Queen replied. "You proved yourself a warrior. That is sufficient." "This is insane." Marcus heard his own voice rising and forced himself to calm down. Yelling at the Queen of an interstellar empire seemed like a poor life choice. "Your Majesty, please. I'm honored, truly. but I'm completely unsuitable for this role. I don't know your customs. I don't speak the language fluently. I'll make mistakes that could embarrass the princess or cause diplomatic incidents." "These concerns are noted," the queen said, her tone suggesting they were not particularly important concerns. "Then there must be someone else, someone actually qualified." "There is no one else I trust." The words hung in the air. Marcus stared up at the queen, seeing something new in her expression. Not just royal authority, but something harder, colder. "The assassination attempt came from within the court," Queen Veltara said quietly. "Someone close enough to know the princess's schedule, her security protocols, her movements. Someone with access to military-grade weapons and teleportation technology. Someone who wants my daughter dead and has the resources to make it happen." Marcus felt pieces clicking together in his mind. "You don't know who?" "I have suspicions, but no proof. And everyone around me, everyone in my government and military and court, is now suspect." The queen's eyes bore into him. "Everyone except you. A human contractor with no ties to Valtharian politics. No family connections to our noble houses. No reason to betray my daughter except pure malice, which your actions have proven you lack." "So I'm a bodyguard because I'm an outsider," Marcus said slowly. "You are a guardian because you are both an outsider and proven capable. That combination is rare." The queen straightened on her throne. "I am not asking, Marcus Chen. I am invoking ancient law and crown authority. You will serve as my daughter's personal guardian until the threat to her life is eliminated or she ascends to the throne. Refusal will be considered an insult to the crown." Marcus opened his mouth to argue further, then closed it. He'd been around politics enough to recognize an immovable position. The queen had made her decision, and nothing he said would change it. "How long?" he asked instead. "Until she is safe, or until she sits where I now sit." The queen gestured, and a side door opened. "You will meet with your charge now. I suggest you both find a way to make this arrangement work. Her life may depend on it." Princess Sirnala entered the throne room, and Marcus saw immediately that she was no happier about this situation than he was. Her posture was rigid, her large eyes cold. When she looked at him, he saw barely concealed resentment. "Mother," the princess said in Valtharian, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, "surely you cannot be serious about this. A human? As my personal guardian?" "I am entirely serious, daughter," the queen replied in the same language, but Marcus's translator earpiece picked it up. "Marcus Chen has proven his worth. He will guard your life." "He got lucky once," Sirnala said. "That does not make him qualified to." "He saved your life when trained guards failed," the queen interrupted. "His methods were crude but effective. His thinking is unconventional. These qualities are valuable." The princess turned to Marcus, switching to English. "No offense intended, but you are not what I would choose for a guardian. You are unfamiliar with our ways. You will be a liability in court." Marcus met her gaze. "None taken. For what it's worth, I didn't ask for this either, but it looks like we're both stuck with it." Something flickered in the princess's eyes. Surprise, maybe, that he'd spoken to her so directly. "Then we understand each other. This is a burden for both of us." "Seems like it." Queen Veltara rose from her throne, the movement commanding immediate attention. "You will both learn to work together. Sirnala, Marcus Chen saved your life at great personal risk. Show him the respect that deserves. Marcus Chen, my daughter is precious to me, and to this empire. Guard her well." The queen descended the dais, passing between them like a force of nature. At the door, she paused. "The next attempt will come soon. They know they failed. They will try again, and they will be better prepared. Learn to trust each other quickly." Then she was gone, leaving Marcus and Princess Sirnala staring at each other in uncomfortable silence. Finally, the princess spoke. "I suppose we should establish ground rules." "Probably a good idea," Marcus agreed. "Follow me then. We have much to discuss, and little time to waste." As Marcus followed the princess from the throne room, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just been drafted into a war he didn't understand. The only question was whether he'd survive long enough to learn the rules. The royal quarters of Princess Cirnala occupied an entire wing of the palace. Marcus followed her through corridors decorated with art that probably cost more than his entire lifetime earnings, past guards who watched him with barely concealed suspicion, and into a private study that overlooked the capital city far below. The princess dismissed her attendants with a gesture, then turned to face Marcus. In the softer light of the study, she looked younger than he'd expected. Valtharians aged differently than humans, he knew, but something in her posture spoke of pressure and responsibility beyond her years. "I need you to understand something," she said without preamble. "I did not ask for this situation any more than you did, but now that it exists, I will make the best of it. I expect the same from you." "Fair enough," Marcus said. "So where do we start?" "With honesty." Cirnala moved to a window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. "My mother is right that someone within the court wants me dead. She is also right that I cannot trust my traditional guards. Many of them have family ties to the noble houses, houses that oppose my positions on reform." "What kind of reform?" Marcus asked. The princess glanced at him, as if evaluating whether he truly wanted to know. "The Valtharian Empire has existed for 3,000 years. Our systems are ancient, our traditions rigid. Many worlds in our empire are governed by laws that have not changed in centuries. I believe we must adapt or risk stagnation." She turned to face him fully. "I have proposed opening trade more freely with younger species, including humanity. I have suggested reforms to our military structure. I have questioned the absolute authority of the noble houses over their territories. These positions have made me many enemies. You don't do things halfway, do you? If change is necessary, half measures accomplish nothing." Cirnala's expression was fierce. "But it also means that powerful beings want me removed before I can ascend to the throne. My mother's enemies become my enemies." "And you think one of these enemies is behind the assassination attempts?" "I am certain of it. The question is which one, and who they have corrupted within the palace." The princess moved to a desk, activating a holographic display. Images appeared in the air between them, showing various Valtharians in formal dress. "These are the primary suspects. Grand Castellan Thix, commander of the Home Fleet. Lady Myersol, head of the Commerce Guild. Lord Ventar, speaker for the Traditionalist faction. Any of them could have orchestrated the attack." Marcus studied the images. "Your mother said she had suspicions but no proof." "My mother is cautious. She will not move against powerful nobles without certainty. But that caution may cost me my life." Cirnala's voice was matter-of-fact, but Marcus heard the fear underneath. She was putting on a brave face, but she was scared. "Okay," Marcus said. "Then we need to figure this out fast. What's my role supposed to be? I can't follow you everywhere without standing out like a human at an alien court." "You will stand out regardless," Cirnala said dryly. "There has never been a human in the Royal Guard. Your presence will cause talk." "Great, so I'll be obvious and untrained. That should work well." "Perhaps your obviousness is an advantage." The princess deactivated the hologram. "If the conspirators see you as merely a human, crude and simple, they may underestimate you." Marcus felt a flicker of annoyance at the phrasing, but he recognized the tactical value. "Let them think I'm just a lucky idiot who got promoted above his station." Precisely. For the first time, something like approval crossed Cirnala's face. "You understand." "I understand being underestimated," Marcus said. "Humans get that a lot in galactic politics. We're the new kids, the primitives who just figured out faster-than-light travel. Most species think we're barely civilized. Are they wrong? The question was blunt, but not hostile. Curious. Maybe not entirely, Marcus admitted. We're younger than most spacefaring species. We don't have thousands of years of tradition or advanced technology that seems like magic. But we're survivors. We're adaptable. And we're really, really good at finding unconventional solutions to problems. I noticed that in the gallery, Cyrenala said. Your tactics were crude but effective. You used the environment, improvised weapons, caused chaos. It was nothing like how a Valtharian warrior would fight. Would a Valtharian warrior have succeeded? The princess was quiet for a moment. No, she finally said. They would have engaged with honor and been killed by superior technology. Your lack of honor saved my life. Marcus couldn't help but smile. I'll take that as a compliment. The following days were a crash course in Valtharian culture and court politics. Marcus was assigned quarters near the princess's rooms, given access to cultural databases, and expected to absorb centuries of tradition while also learning the daily routine of royal life. It was overwhelming. The Valtharians had rules for everything: how to stand in the presence of nobles, which colors indicated which houses, the 17 different forms of formal address depending on rank and occasion, the significance of various gestures and postures. Marcus's head spun with information, and he knew he was failing. He used the wrong honorific when addressing a visiting dignitary, causing visible offense. He wore the wrong color sash to a court function, accidentally signaling allegiance to a house he'd never heard of. He stood in a position during a ceremony that was apparently reserved for blood relatives of the crown. The court watched his mistakes with amusement or disdain, depending on the observer. He became the subject of whispered conversations and poorly hidden laughter. The human guardian, bumbling through situations he couldn't possibly understand. But Cyrenala noticed something the others didn't. Marcus might make social mistakes, but when it came to security, his instincts were flawless. He positioned himself to watch entrances. He cataloged faces and noted who appeared where. He questioned protocols that seemed designed for ceremony rather than safety. And he refused to be intimidated by rank when something seemed wrong. You are learning, the princess said one evening, as they returned to her quarters from yet another exhausting court function. I'm making a fool of myself, Marcus corrected. Your traditional guards look at me like I'm a trained monkey that learned to walk upright. They look at you like a threat they do not understand, Cyrenala said. That is different. Marcus glanced at her, surprised. The princess had been warming to him gradually over the past week, but this was the first time she'd suggested his presence had any real value. I embarrassed you today, he said, with the commerce delegation. You stood in the wrong position, she agreed, but you also noticed that one of their guards was carrying a weapon design that does not match our security agreements. You observed what everyone else missed because they were focused on ceremony. Marcus had noticed that. The weapon had been subtle, concealed in a ceremonial staff, but its energy signature had been wrong. He'd made a note to investigate further. See, Cyrenala continued, your mistakes in protocol are temporary. Your instincts for danger are valuable. They walked in silence for a moment. Then Marcus asked the question that had been bothering him. Do you really believe your reforms can change the Empire? 3,000 years of tradition is a lot to fight against. I must believe it, the princess said quietly. Because the alternative is watching my people stagnate while the galaxy moves forward. Your species understands this. Humanity has existed in known space for barely a century, yet you have achieved remarkable things because you refuse to be bound by tradition alone. You adapt, you change, you grow. We also make a lot of mistakes, Marcus pointed out. As do we. The difference is whether we learn from them. Siranala stopped at the entrance to her quarters, her guards taking position nearby. "You are not what I expected, Marcus Chen. You are rough, and you lack refinement. But you are honest, and in a court full of calculated words and hidden motives, that is surprisingly refreshing." "Thanks, I think." The princess actually smiled, the expression softening her features. It was a compliment. "Perhaps we can make this situation work after all." Marcus smiled back. "Perhaps we can." That night, as Marcus reviewed security footage from the day's events, he found something that made his blood run cold. The guard with the non-standard weapon had been positioned perfectly to have a clear shot at the princess during 3 separate moments in the ceremony. The assassination hadn't happened, which meant either the guard was innocent or something had stopped them from taking the shot. Marcus checked the footage again, frame by frame. Then he saw it. During each of those 3 moments, he had been between the guard and the princess. Not intentionally, but because his instincts had placed him there. He'd been shielding her without even realizing it. The conspirators weren't just planning another attack, Marcus realized. They were studying him, learning his patterns, figuring out his weaknesses. The next attempt would come, and they would be ready. Marcus looked toward the direction of Siranala's quarters. The princess was sleeping, trusting him to keep her safe. He'd accepted this responsibility reluctantly, but somewhere along the way, it had become real. She was someone worth protecting. He pulled up the files on the suspected conspirators and began to study them in detail. If there was going to be another attempt, he needed to be ready. And more than that, he needed to figure out who was behind this before they got lucky. The Queen had been right about one thing. He and Siranala needed to trust each other quickly. Time, Marcus suspected, was running out. The breakthrough came 3 weeks into Marcus's service as Royal Guardian. He was reviewing security logs in his quarters, looking for patterns, when he noticed something odd. Several high-ranking officials had visited the Grand Castellan's offices within hours of each assassination attempt or security breach. On its own, that meant nothing. The Grand Castellan was the Queen's chief military advisor. People visited his office constantly. But the same 3 officials, always within the same time frame, always using private conference rooms with disabled recording systems, that was suspicious. Marcus pulled up profiles on the 3 officials. Admiral Kyerson, commander of the Second Fleet. Councillor Drelvan, head of intelligence oversight. Lady Charlene, the Queen's own seneschal. All trusted positions, all with access to royal schedules and security protocols. He was staring at the data, trying to figure out his next move, when his door chimed. Princess Siranala entered without waiting for a response, her expression troubled. "We need to talk," she said, privately. Marcus gestured to a chair, but she remained standing, too agitated to sit. "What's wrong?" "I received a message today, anonymous, routed through multiple systems to hide its origin." She pulled out a data chip. "Someone is warning me that the next attempt will come during the royal ascension ceremony next week." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "The ceremony where your mother officially names you crown heir?" "The same. It will be attended by every major noble house, every important official, hundreds of witnesses. My mother believes the public declaration will protect me. If I am officially crown heir, moving against me becomes treason against the throne itself." "But someone doesn't care about that," Marcus said slowly. "They're willing to commit treason in front of the entire empire. Or they plan to make it look like something else," Siranala said. "An accident. A terrorist attack by outsiders. Something that removes me without pointing back to them." Marcus turned back to his screens, pulling up his findings. "I think I know who's behind this. Look at this pattern." He showed her the data. The princess's eyes widened as she absorbed the information. "The Grand Castellan? That is impossible. He has served my mother for 50 years. He is her most trusted advisor." "Which makes him perfect for this," Marcus said. "Who would suspect him? And look at the officials meeting with him. They control fleet movements, intelligence gathering, and access to the Queen's own household. Together they could coordinate an attack and cover it up. But why? Cernala sank into the chair she'd refused earlier. The Grand Castellan has no personal ambition. He has always served the crown faithfully. Maybe he thinks he's still serving the crown, Marcus suggested. You said your reforms threaten traditional power structures. What if he believes those reforms will destroy the Empire? He might see killing you as saving Baltheris, preserving the old ways. The princess was quiet, thinking. It fits, she finally admitted. Thykes is a traditionalist. He has opposed my positions in council meetings, always respectfully but firmly. He has spoken of the dangers of too much change too quickly. So what do we do? Marcus asked. Go to the Queen? With what evidence? Meeting logs and suspicions? Cernala shook her head. My mother will not move against her Grand Castellan without proof. We need something concrete. Then we get proof, Marcus said. We set a trap. Over the next 3 days, Marcus and Cernala planned carefully. They would leak false information through channels they suspected were compromised, claiming the princess would be inspecting a remote military facility the day before the ceremony. The inspection would be secret, with minimal security, creating an opportunity too good for the conspirators to pass up. If they take the bait, we will have them, Cernala said. We can trace the leak, identify the conspirators, bring evidence to my mother. And if they don't take the bait? Marcus asked. Then we are no worse off than before, and we know the ceremony is the real target. The princess met his eyes. Either way, we will have our answer. They leaked the information through 3 separate channels, each connected to one of the suspected officials. Then, they waited. 2 days later, intelligence reports showed unusual fleet movements near the remote facility. Ships that had no reason to be in that sector were repositioning. Marines were being quietly reassigned. Someone was preparing to hit the inspection site hard. They took the bait, Marcus said, studying the reports in the princess's private study. Now we spring the trap. But Cernala was frowning at something on her own screen. Wait, look at this. These troop movements are large, too large for a simple assassination. This is enough force to seize the facility itself. Marcus looked over her shoulder. She was right. The numbers didn't match an assassination attempt. This was a military operation. They're not just trying to kill you, he said slowly. They're going to blame it on a military coup attempt. Make it look like radical reformers in the military tried to seize power, and you got caught in the crossfire. Which would justify a purge of reform-minded officers across the entire military, Cernala finished. They are not just removing me. They are using my death to eliminate everyone who supports change. We need to tell the Queen now, Marcus insisted. This is bigger than we thought. We still have no concrete proof that the Grand Castellan is involved, the princess argued. These could be rogue elements acting without his knowledge. You don't believe that. No, Cernala admitted. But my mother might. We need to catch them in the act. Marcus wanted to argue further, but he saw the determination in the princess's eyes. She'd made up her mind. Okay, then we go to the facility as planned. But we bring backup. Loyal guards, people you trust absolutely. There are few I trust absolutely, Cernala said. Present company excluded. Then we bring the few you do trust, and we prepare for a fight. The remote facility was a research station on Valtheris Prime's smaller moon, studying some kind of advanced propulsion system Marcus didn't fully understand. It was lightly staffed and isolated, connected to the capital by a single shuttle route. Perfect for an ambush. Marcus and 6 hand-picked guards accompanied Princess Cernala on the inspection shuttle. The guards were young, chosen because they had no family connections to noble houses and had expressed support for reform. They were also, Marcus noted, nervous. They knew something was wrong even if they hadn't been told the full situation. Stay sharp, Marcus told them as the shuttle approached the facility. If something happens, your priority is protecting the princess. Nothing else matters. They nodded, hands drifting toward weapons. The facility appeared normal as they docked. Scientists went about their work. Security checked credentials. Everything routine. But Marcus's instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. The energy felt off. Then he saw it. One of the facility security officers was wearing a communications device that didn't match standard issue. The same non-standard design he'd seen at the ceremony weeks ago. "It's a trap," Marcus said urgently. "We need to leave now." He was 3 seconds too late. The facility's main doors sealed with a metallic clang. Emergency protocols activated, locking down the entire station. And on every screen throughout the facility, the Grand Castellan's face appeared. "Princess Serenala," his voice echoed through the corridors, "I am truly sorry it has come to this, but you have left me no choice. Your reforms would destroy everything our empire has built. I cannot allow that." "Thanks," the princess said, stepping toward a screen. "Please, we can discuss this. Find a compromise." "There is no compromise between preservation and destruction," the Grand Castellan replied. "In 10 minutes, this facility will suffer a catastrophic reactor failure. Your death will be mourned across the empire, and the radical elements who caused this tragedy will be purged from our military. Order will be restored." The screen went dark. Marcus was already moving. "The reactor, can we shut it down?" "Not without access codes we do not have," one of the scientists said, face pale with fear. "And the emergency overrides have been disabled." "Then we get off this station," Marcus said. "Back to the shuttle." They ran, but halfway to the docking bay, they found their path blocked by armed soldiers in unmarked combat armor. Not facility security, not royal guards. Mercenaries, Marcus recognized. Hired guns with no loyalty except to whoever paid them. "Protect the princess," Marcus ordered the guards, drawing his sidearm. What followed was not the heroic battle of entertainment holovids. It was brutal, desperate, and chaotic. Marcus and the royal guards had training and determination. The mercenaries had numbers and better equipment. The corridor became a war zone of energy bolts and shouted orders. Marcus fought with everything he had, every dirty trick he'd learned in his years of security work. He used corners for cover, threw debris to distract, and aimed for weak points in armor. Beside him, the royal guards fought with similar desperation. They were protecting their princess, and that gave them strength beyond their experience. But there were too many mercenaries. One of the guards went down, then another. Marcus took a shot to the shoulder, the pain white-hot and immediate. His arm went numb. Then Princess Serenala did something unexpected. She grabbed a fallen mercenary's weapon and opened fire with surprising accuracy, covering Marcus as he pulled the wounded guards to better cover. "I am not helpless," she said fiercely when Marcus stared at her. "My mother ensured I had weapons training, even if tradition says princesses should not fight." Together, they held the corridor. Barely. The mercenaries had pulled back, regrouping for another assault. Marcus checked his chronometer. 6 minutes until reactor failure. "There has to be another way out," he said. "The maintenance tunnels," one of the scientists offered. "They connect to an emergency escape pod bay, but the path goes through the reactor level." "Right past the radiation we're trying to avoid," Marcus said. "Perfect. Let's go." They ran through the facility, following the scientists through service corridors Marcus hadn't known existed. Behind them, they could hear the mercenaries in pursuit. Ahead, warning klaxons blared as the reactor became increasingly unstable. The escape pod bay was ancient, designed decades ago as a safety measure, and largely forgotten. Only 3 pods remained functional. 3 pods for 8 people. "You first," Marcus said to the princess. "No." Serenala was absolute. "Everyone goes. We make it work." They crammed into the pods, 3 people per pod, where 2 was meant to be maximum. It was tight, uncomfortable, and probably violated a dozen safety protocols. Marcus didn't care. He slapped the launch button. The pods ejected just as the reactor went critical. Through the small viewport, Marcus watched the research facility tear itself apart in a ball of expanding energy. If they'd been 30 seconds slower, they would have died with it. The pod's basic propulsion carried them away from the blast, automatic distress signals broadcasting their location. Within minutes, Royal rescue ships were responding, drawn by the explosion and the emergency beacons. As rescue crews pulled them from the pods, Marcus saw something that made his blood boil. Among the responding ships was the Grand Castellan's personal flagship. Fix himself was visible on the command deck through the viewport, directing rescue operations with apparent concern. The bastard was playing the worried advisor, shocked by this terrible tragedy. "We need to tell the Queen everything," Marcus said to Cernala as medical personnel checked them over. "We will," the princess promised, "but we need more than our word against his. He will deny everything, claim the mercenaries were rogue agents." "Then we get proof," Marcus said grimly. "One way or another, we end this at the ceremony." Cernala nodded, her expression hard. "Agreed. No more running, no more waiting. We face this directly." As they were transported back to the capital, Marcus realized something had changed. He and the princess had fought side by side, trusted each other with their lives. They weren't just guardian and charge anymore. And together, they were going to stop a conspiracy that threatened the entire empire. The ceremony was in 3 days. That wasn't much time to prepare. But it would have to be enough. The royal ascension ceremony was scheduled for midday, when Valtherus Prime's sun reached its zenith and flooded the grand throne hall with natural light. Marcus had 3 days to prepare, and he spent them turning himself into a paranoid security nightmare. He inspected every entrance to the throne hall personally. He vetted every guard assigned to the ceremony, checking their backgrounds and family connections. He interviewed the staff who would serve refreshments, the technicians who would operate recording equipment, the decorators placing ceremonial banners. Anyone who would be in the hall during the ceremony got questioned. "You are making yourself unpopular," Cernala observed on the second day, as Marcus finished interrogating a flower arranger who'd been working royal functions for 20 years. "Don't care," Marcus said flatly. "Someone's going to try to kill you, in front of the entire empire. I'm not taking chances. The Grand Castellan will be expecting us to be cautious. He will have adapted his plans." "Good, let him adapt. The more he changes things, the more chances he makes mistakes." Marcus pulled up a holographic layout of the throne hall. "Look at this. The ceremony follows a precise order, right? Traditional positions for everyone. Of course, the ceremony is 3,000 years old. Every element has meaning, which makes it predictable." Marcus highlighted several positions on the hologram. "You'll be here in the center of the hall. Your mother here on the throne. The Grand Castellan and other high officials here, here, and here. Everyone in assigned positions." "Yes, what is your point?" "My point is that if I were planning an assassination during this ceremony, I'd use that predictability. I'd know exactly where you'd be at every moment. I'd position my people to have clear lines of fire. I'd blend the attack into the ceremony itself, so no one realizes what's happening until it's too late." Cernala studied the hologram. "So we change the ceremony?" "Can't. That would tip them off that we know something. But we can change the one variable they can't predict." "Which is?" "Me." Marcus grinned without humor. "I'm the unpredictable element, the human who doesn't follow proper protocol. What if I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time? What if I make mistakes that put me between you and wherever the attack is coming from? You would use your own social incompetence as a defense strategy." Despite the situation, Cernala sounded almost amused. "Hey, if I'm going to be bad at court etiquette, might as well make it useful." They worked through the night, planning Marcus's carefully calculated mistakes. He would stumble at precise moments, stand in wrong positions, create minor disruptions that would appear accidental, but would actually disrupt any planned attack vectors. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was something. On the morning of the ceremony, Queen Velthara summoned both Marcus and Cernala to a private audience. The queen looked tired, as if she hadn't slept well in days. "I know you suspect the Grand Castellan," she said without preamble. "Do not look surprised. I am not blind. I have seen the way you watch him, the way you have investigated his movements." "Mother," Cernala began. "I also suspect him," the queen continued, "have suspected for some time. But suspicion is not proof, and I cannot move against my chief military advisor without certainty. Such an accusation could tear the Empire apart." "Then let us get you proof today," Marcus said, during the ceremony. The queen fixed him with that ancient gaze. "You plan to provoke the attack. Force them to show their hand. It's the only way. It is dangerous, for both of you." "Everything about this situation is dangerous," Cernala said. "But Marcus is right. We cannot live in fear, waiting for them to choose their moment. We must seize control of the situation." Queen Velthara was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Very well. But know this. If you are wrong, if this is not the Grand Castellan but some other threat, you will have wasted our attention on the wrong enemy." "We're not wrong," Marcus said, with more confidence than he felt. The ceremony began exactly on schedule. The Grand Throne Hall filled with nobles, officials, and honored guests from across the Empire. Every major house was represented. Every important military commander was present. The hall glittered with formal dress and ceremonial weapons, with jewelry that cost fortunes, and honor guards in polished armor. Marcus, in his simple guardian's uniform, stood out like a stain on silk. He positioned himself near Princess Cernala, as tradition demanded, but not quite in the correct spot. Close enough to protect, but slightly wrong. The first calculated mistake. The ceremony proceeded through its ancient rituals, declarations of lineage, recitations of duty, formal presentations by each noble house, pledging their continued loyalty. Marcus watched everything, his eyes constantly moving, cataloging faces and positions. There, Admiral Kyrson, positioned with other military commanders, had shifted his stance slightly. Not much, but enough to give him a clearer angle toward the princess. And there, Lady Charlene, the Queen's seneschal, had moved closer to the throne itself, under pretense of adjusting ceremonial items. But her position now blocked the easiest route for guards to reach the princess if something happened. They were getting ready. Marcus could feel it. The ceremony reached its crucial moment. Queen Velthara rose from her throne to make the formal declaration naming Cernala as crown heir. The entire hall fell silent, attention focused on the queen. That's when Marcus saw it. Counselor Drelvan, head of intelligence oversight, made a subtle hand gesture. Around the hall, 6 guards, wearing proper uniforms but positioned in unusual spots, began to move. Not toward the princess, toward the queen. Marcus's mind raced. They weren't targeting Cernala. They were going after Queen Velthara. Kill the queen during the ceremony, blame it on the princess or her supporters, throw the succession into chaos, and justify a military response under the Grand Castellan's control. "It's a coup," Marcus said urgently to Cernala. "They're going after your mother." The princess saw it too, her eyes widening in horror. Without hesitation, she moved toward the throne, social protocol forgotten. The 6 false guards drew weapons. Marcus didn't think. He grabbed a ceremonial banner from its stand and threw it at the nearest attacker, the heavy fabric tangling their weapon. Then he was moving, shouting at the top of his lungs. "Treason! Protect the queen!" The hall erupted into chaos. Loyal guards, initially confused, saw the weapons and reacted. Nobles scattered. The false guards opened fire, energy bolts scorching the air. Marcus tackled one attacker, driving them into a marble pillar. Pain exploded through his injured shoulder, but he ignored it. He grabbed the attacker's weapon hand, slammed it against the pillar until they dropped the gun, then delivered an elbow to what he hoped was a vulnerable spot. Marcus grabbed their weapon and kept moving. Cyrenala had reached her mother, placing herself between the queen and the attackers. The princess held a ceremonial blade, her expression fierce. A bolt of energy passed within inches of her head. Marcus shot the guard who'd fired, hitting them in the leg. Not a kill shot, but enough to take them out of the fight. He needed prisoners, not corpses. They needed proof. The Grand Castellan stood on his podium, and Marcus saw the older Valtharian's mask slip. His expression showed not shock, but fury. The fury of a plan falling apart. "Stand down," the Grand Castellan commanded the attacking guards. "This is not how." He cut himself off, realizing he'd just revealed his involvement. Queen Velthara heard it too. Her eyes locked onto her old advisor. "You," the queen said, her voice carrying through the chaos. "All these years, you were loyal to tradition, not to me." "I am loyal to the Empire," the Grand Castellan shouted back. "You and your daughter would destroy it with your reforms. I am trying to save what we have built." "By killing me?" The queen's voice was cold as deep space. "That is your definition of loyalty? You left me no choice. You refused to see reason." Guards were surrounding the remaining attackers now, weapons drawn. The coup attempt had failed. But the Grand Castellan had one more card to play. "The Second Fleet is moving on the capital as we speak," he said. "I gave the orders hours ago. Even if you arrest me, my officers will complete the plan. The military will seize control, remove the threats to stability, and restore proper order to the Empire." "You would start a civil war," Cyrenala said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Thousands would die. Thousands dying now is better than the Empire falling to chaos later," the Grand Castellan replied. "You are too young to understand. Too idealistic." "No," Marcus said, stepping forward. "She's just not as scared as you are." The Grand Castellan looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. "A human, of course. You are everything wrong with this new age. Primitive species, given too much influence, corrupting our traditions." "Those traditions nearly got the princess killed multiple times," Marcus pointed out. "Maybe they're not as valuable as you think." "Arrest him," Queen Velthara commanded, and guards moved forward to take the Grand Castellan into custody. The old Valtharian didn't resist, but his expression remained defiant. "The fleet will still come," he said. "You cannot stop it." "Yes, we can," Cyrenala said. She turned to Admiral Kyrsin, who'd been carefully not moving during the fighting. "Admiral, you are under arrest for treason, but I am going to make you an offer. Contact the Second Fleet immediately. Tell them the coup has failed, and the Grand Castellan is in custody. Order them to stand down. Do this, and I will argue for leniency when you are tried." The Admiral looked between the princess and the queen, calculating his options. Finally, he nodded slowly. "I will do it, but I want your word, Your Majesty." "You have it," Queen Velthara said. "Now make the call." The next hour was tense. Admiral Kyrsin, under heavy guard, contacted the approaching fleet. There was resistance at first, commanders who'd committed to the coup, unwilling to back down. But as word spread that the Grand Castellan had been arrested and the plot exposed, support crumbled. Ship by ship, the fleet stood down. By evening, the situation was under control. The conspirators were in custody. The ceremony, interrupted by attempted regicide, would be rescheduled. And the entire empire was talking about the human guardian who'd helped stop a coup. Marcus sat in a palace garden as night fell, trying to process everything that had happened. His shoulder hurt. His ribs hurt. His head hurt. but they'd won. Sirnala was safe. The Queen was safe. The conspiracy was broken. "I thought I would find you here," Sirnala said, appearing on the garden path. She'd changed from her ceremonial dress into simpler clothes, though she still moved like royalty. "Needed some air," Marcus said, "and some quiet. You saved my mother's life today, and possibly prevented a civil war." "Just did my job." "Your job was to protect me. You went far beyond that." The princess sat beside him on the stone bench. "My mother wishes to speak with you tomorrow, about your future." Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. "Let me guess. She's making the guardian position permanent." "Something like that." Sirnala smiled slightly. "She is creating a new office in the Empire. A position for someone who thinks differently than we do. Someone who can see threats we miss and find solutions we would not imagine." "A fancy title for professional troublemaker?" "More or less." The princess looked at the stars appearing in the darkening sky. "You would be the first human to hold noble rank in our empire. You would have significant authority and responsibility. You would also face considerable opposition from traditionalists who survived today's events. So business as usual then." "Marcus." Sirnala turned to face him. "You do not have to accept. My mother is giving you a real choice this time. You could return to human space, to your old life. No one would judge you for it. You have done more than anyone could have asked." Marcus thought about it. Returning to his old life as a contractor, moving from station to station, taking whatever security jobs paid well. It would be easier, simpler. No court politics, no assassination plots, no standing out like a primitive among advanced aliens. But he'd also miss this. The challenge, the purpose. And he had to admit, the princess herself. She'd become more than just an assignment. She was a friend. Maybe the best friend he'd made in years. "What happens if I say no?" Marcus asked. "Then you leave with my gratitude and a substantial payment for services rendered. We part as friends, and you live your life as you choose." "And you?" "I continue as crown heir, find a new guardian, probably a traditional Valtharian warrior, continue pushing for reforms, though more carefully after today's events. Eventually, become queen." Sirnala paused. "I will miss having someone around who tells me directly when I am wrong, instead of wrapping disagreement in 5 layers of protocol." "That's fair." Marcus looked up at the stars, the same stars he'd looked at from a dozen different worlds. Then, he looked back at the princess. "I have one condition." "Name it." "No more secret assassination plots or coup attempts. I've had enough excitement for a lifetime." Sirnala laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. "I cannot promise that, unfortunately. Reforming an empire means making enemies. There will always be those who oppose change." "Then I guess you need someone around to watch your back." The princess smiled. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes." Marcus held out his hand, human style. After a moment, Sirnala took it, her 4-fingered hand surprisingly warm in his. They sat in the garden as night fully fell. 2 beings from different worlds who'd found common ground in the most unlikely of circumstances. Around them, the palace buzzed with activity as the aftermath of the coup attempt was managed. Messages flew across the empire. Arrests continued. The machinery of government shifted to adapt to this new reality. But in the quiet of the garden, Marcus and Sirnala simply sat, watching stars that belonged to an empire that was just beginning to change. "My mother will want to make a formal announcement," Sirnala said eventually. "Your new position will need a proper title, something dignified and appropriate." "How about Royal Guardian who breaks things and occasionally saves lives?" Marcus suggested. "How about Guardian of the Crown and Voice of Alternative Perspectives?" "That's way too fancy." "Welcome to Valtharian politics." Marcus groaned. "I'm gonna hate the paperwork, aren't I?" "Immensely," Sirnala agreed. "But you will also change things, already have changed things, You showed my people that different ways of thinking have value. That humans, despite being younger and less advanced in some ways, can contribute meaningfully to galactic society. Marcus warned, "Just don't expect me to learn all those ceremonial protocols." I would not dream of it. Your mistakes are too tactically useful. They talked into the night, planning for a future that neither of them had expected, but both were willing to build together. A human and an alien princess, partners in protecting and reforming an empire thousands of years old. It was crazy. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of unconventional solution that humanity specialized in. Marcus figured that was pretty appropriate.